Greetings, gentlemen. So, Sotia, Ogre, and Corgi, and a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of thinking. This is you could apply this to trucking somewhat, but more over to life. And we're going to talk about what's right, wrong, and a third option. You know, it's kind of going to draw back a little analogy from way back in the fucking day, so there's going to be a little philosophy here. Dude Bro and me and some other people were hanging out in this one of my friend's attics, and the attic was basically, it was made into a room, and Dude Bro was playing like Fallout 2 on the computer while drinking a bottle of rum. Had some pizza there, and we had some case of ice beer and shit, and we're just talking about shit, because like this 18, 20 something years ago, and I'm almost 40, so, you're at that age and you think, what is the meaning of life? Everybody's drunk or high or something, you got like gypsy hippie chick, because Dude Bro playing the video games is kind of a toilet Casanova, so there's always some bitch at his house. One of my buddies used to say this line, "God damn it, Corey, you're always bringing back some stray bitch." And it's like, inevitably the woman would look over at him like fucking, just glare at him, and it's like, it's funny though, because it'd just be some random hippie chick. You could argue which way you want to look at life, But everybody's talking about different things, and my answer was, I don't really know. I don't have an answer. I don't deny that there could be something, but I don't believe it. I mean, I'm more likely to believe in aliens, because that just makes more fucking sense. Like, what we perceive to be as God may be an alien. And Dude Bro playing the computer, playing Fallout 2, he basically was like, well, what do you think? He says, I think when we die, we just cease to function. Like, when this computer here ceases to work, it just ceases to function. As long as we have parts to keep it running, then it continues to function. But a lot of people were like, man, that's so dark, and so, especially the chick, because this whole pseudo spiritual, the last 120 years. Not to say this shit hasn't always existed, but the new age spirituality, away from religion, but just spirituality. Yeah, we got to continue existing. There's something beyond this. Because, think about that for a second. Think about the daunting prospect of what my buddy just said. Actually, and he elaborated. He's like, look, man, I look at it like this. You're alive right now, and what are you doing? Are you doing what you want to do? Are you living your life the way you want to live it? Or are you just kind of cruise controlling through life, and then hopefully there's an afterlife? Well, if there is an afterlife, okay, cool. But what if you just wasted the only shot you got? And basically, after that, what was it? You could have been doing all these things when you were alive and living and whatnot. And no, you just wasted your life following someone else's plan. And I'm like, that makes sense. Yeah, because what if this is the only thing we got? What if we are just fucking organic computers, essentially? And people are like, well, what do you mean? Elaborate on that shit. Think about we have a basic hardware. Breathe air, need some food, drink water, have to piss and shit occasionally, and we fuck to make more computers. That's it. And even the miracle of birth, well, let's be real about it, it's just an organic function. It's no different than taking a shit when you really get down to it. You just have to select the right mate. Now you don't even have to select the right mate. And then 9 months later, she cranks out a baby, and hopefully you guys can raise another organic computer that's not a fuck up. But not that fucking miraculous, right? And then you go into, what about the software? And I'd argue the right and wrong style shit software. It's our cultures. Hey, this is wrong because we all agree that it's wrong. But wait a minute, you go to another culture and they say, well, no, we believe in this. You look at different things on how people eat, or different practices, household things, even sexual behavior. I mean, who you can fuck. Why is it wrong? Because it is. That's what type of logic is that? Because it is the biggest fucking line. Or they used to just say, because God said so. That's it. But when you really get down to it, what is God? And that one will fucking, you really get to thinking about it for a second. You're like, oh wait, God is usually the collective wisdom of a group of people. And basically being able to dole out punishment. So it was a crime and punishment / knowledge system. Why don't you eat shellfish or cloven hoofed animals? Well, someone probably got really sick. Or they ate some shellfish and it was the wrong time of year and they got paralytic shellfish disease and fucking died. So that's a reason that people would be like, no, no, don't do that. God says it's wrong. Or some bad dude in the tribe gets struck by lightning as a freak accident. And they're like, God punished him. But when God wasn't around to do the punishing, it just turned around. Well, God told us, like we had the wise elder, and he told us, this is wrong. You do not do this behavior. And why would we have that? Well, because you need, like, let's say you got people running around fucking around on people. And there's really no incentive to be a husband or a man in a relationship if you're not treated with the modicum of respect. Like, you know those are your kids, number one. You know the bitch ain't cheating on you, you know, and your house is safe and whatnot. If you lose all those things, why would you do it? So why do you think there was so much emphasis on protecting marriage? Because that would keep the society going. Also, it allowed people to network. That's what marriage was to some degree back in the day. So people get together and they say, well, my son, your daughter, we'll join his family so we can work together against these other families. You know, and that's fucking, it's a matter of programming, but the social morals and the formats and all that shit, formalities, I should say. You start really analyzing it for a while. And then you go to another entirely different culture, an entirely different way of thinking. And I don't know, there's some things because of my programming, like when I see people cooking live fucking animals, I'm like, that's fucked up. You almost kind of want to boil one of those motherfuckers and be like, you like that shit? Oh, yeah, boiled alive ain't so cool now? Yeah, fucking sick fuck. But then one might say, yeah, you might humanely eat the animal. You might, zap it with a thing, but you're still killing the animal. So that's where you have your, like, Hindu/vegan person come up and be judgmental. Like, I'm judgmental against this person for fucking Chinese market style doing a dog or some shit because I think that's fucked up. But then the Hindu or the vegan will come up to me and be like, well, you're still part of the problem. It's all programming. It is. It's software and programming. And even look at, like, non-religious shit, like, for instance, veganism and all that, and, feminism and all this other crap, like you have around. Where, like, even socialism, communism, you replaced, say, God with the state. And that's how I actually view religion. It's like, okay, if I don't do what the dictator says, I'm going to go to the gulag. If I don't do what the religious people say, I'm going to burn in the fiery gulag for all eternity. Like, you must bow to the state, or you must bow to the invisible man. So you just replace the invisible man with an actual man, a strong man, and then a systematic order to keep together. Well, systematic order can be argued as the orthodoxy of the religion. But wherever you go, there's programming for each group of people. I'm not even fucking kidding when I say this. Like, just look at it all around the world. It's just programming. Can you imagine how fucking, think about a supermarket. How fucking crazy that reality would be to someone from the middle of the jungle that doesn't know, can't even conceive that. Like, they can perceive food, but the idea of a building, all this food there, how fucking nuts that must have seemed if you were introduced to that. And then you have to hand them this inedible paper and coinage, and how do you get that shit for one reason? And they give you food. How fucking nuts that would be. But that's our programming, and because we get used to that concept of what we live around and what we are, we don't even think about it. I mean, I remember this always one people like, well, you need to go to church on Sunday and shit. I remember this one dude said this line, I'll never forget. He was like, yeah, well, I worship God by not putting extra effort in on Sundays and just sitting in my Barca lounge and watching football. I'm like, yeah, but aren't you kind of not obeying the Sabbath by supporting an organization that works on Sunday? He's like, yeah, well, that's those guys' issue between God. They can figure their shit out. I'm just relaxing and worshiping them by watching my team. I was like, wow, Barca Lounger Christianity. But, yeah, no, you start to think about it from the idea of the programming and the limitations of the programming. And literally, it's just your physical body versus your mind telling you you can and cannot do these things. And that's the scary thing when you realize that, like, most people are literally, they've got the governors on them. If you're a trucker, you know what that means. They have governors on their mind. Because a free man, an absolutely free man or free individual, is one of the scariest things for the normal world. Like, people tell you, well, you can't do this. And you're like, what's stopping me other than me? Maybe you might stop me, but can you stop me? And that concept of, like, I can do whatever I want. Like, if you want to be an artist and be a painter and shit, you could just go do that. If you wanted to be a rock climber or something, or a rock star, maybe you have to convince people in the rock star thing, but you can be literally, it's a whole thing of, like, a good man does this, this is right, this is wrong. And then we come into the concepts of good and evil and all that shit. I'm like, well, what you consider evil, like, okay, for instance, if you go over to, like, say, England, and you see the situation where you have these grooming gangs going on, and they happen to be Pakistani, pretty much all Pakistani guys, which happen to be Muslim, and they don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. They're like grabbing up, kids, like 13-year-olds. As soon as they got a hair on them, that type of thing, you know what I'm talking about. They consider them of the age, and because they're not clean women, good Muslim women, that their book says it's okay to do whatever the fuck they want. So their programming tells them that that's okay. As where most people's programming says, hey, don't fuck with my daughter or I'll kill your ass. That's the natural programming. And yet, because these people, say in England, have had this governor put on their brain, saying, no, I can't do this, they'll call me racist and that'll cause me to lose my ability to function in society. They sit there and allow atrocities to happen. I mean, you would think at some point you would just see people just take to the streets with fucking bats and shit and just kill the fucking grooming gangs, just fucking murder the shit out of them and be like, if this shit ever happens again, we're killing the rest of the people around here. That would be you breaking the mold of society, doing whatever you want to. Like, you're just taking up for your own. But when people do that, they inevitably have to be ostracized, because you can't have a controlled, safe, sane world with free people. And this just gets into the concept of thought, right versus wrong. And then you even look at some of the fucked up shit in the world, and you're like, you say this is wrong, but who are you rewarding? I mean, I'm being honest about this. If someone does what's considered wrong, but they get the right results, well, let's just say right, wrong, and then what works. So we're going with the third option. They do what works. They buck their programming, whether it's, say Christian, Muslim, Hindu, hell, Zoroastrian for all I care, or just like, non-religious. They buck the social trends and just say, I can literally do whatever I want. I have a body, I can walk around, I can do this, I can be this, I can do this. I mean, if I'm truly in a free country and a free-thinking person, why can't I do this? If it's two people are consensual doing whatever they're doing, but your people seem to have a problem with what they're doing, like, think about this crazy one. Say there's two people and they just want to hike naked. They have their backpacks on. There was a guy that did that through Scotland. And it's totally illegal, but he's just doing what he wants to do. And can you fucking stop him? Yeah, you can put your force of the authority onto him and put him in jail. But even when this guy got out of jail, as soon as he got away from the prison, he was out of jail, he just took off all his clothes and started walking naked again. And you're like, that's insane. It is insane. But it's this weird thing in society that we constantly say, we're gonna fucking tell you have to go to work, you have to go to work, obviously you're going to have a nice car, you're going to have to clothes, you have this whole pre-programmed way of existing. Your computer could be anything. You could be that wild, crazy guy doing whatever the fuck you want. But instead, we first fuck this programming from a young age, including when you're a child, in grade school, like TV, grade school, K through 12 basically, and then into college, or if you go into the trades. And this is just a general way you're supposed to exist. And then you see occasionally just someone who says, well, you've told me what's right, and you've told me what's wrong, but I'm going to do what gets results. And I had a buddy back in the day where, I thought about it, because I got to admit it worked. He just at the age of 30 decided, fuck it, because he talked to some other guys that had done it. And he just like, fuck it, why should I go out and work? And so he just went to the state of Washington, and he faked crazy. And you remember back when people were crazy, used to get put in jail, like put into asylum and shit? Well, they don't do that anymore. They figure it's cheaper to give a crazy homeless person anywhere from $800 to $1,000 a month. So they, they live with a relative, live in a trailer. This buddy of mine, I call him the welfare woodsman because you could drop them in the woods practically anywhere in a lot of the world, and well, not in a lot of the world, but a lot of the Northwest of the whole greater North America, and he would be fine. He'd be like, there's food, there's food, there's food. But he doesn't function well working a job. You know why? Because the boss tells him some bullshit and tries to fuck him around, and he's just like, nope. He just doesn't have that in him. And part of it has to do with the fact that he's always been able to get by on next to nothing. He doesn't care. It's like, I remember this one time he was telling me, well, I didn't really want to work this job, and everybody's nagging me. I should try to get a job there. I'm like, well, what's that like? Because I'm like an ogre of a man, so people are kind of okay with me, but they're not really going to go the extra mile for me. That's part of the reason I love trucking. It doesn't matter if people don't like you. If people don't like you, you're just like, I can find another company right now, or I can just buy my own truck, and do my own goddamn business. Because if you've saved your money, you can do this. But it's that kind of FU attitude. And this guy, he gets this job working at this boat company, and it's big yachts and stuff they're building. And they tried to put him on days, keep him on days. And he's like, look, my girlfriend works over at the casino. She's a blackjack dealer, and she made sometimes around $300 a night in tips. And basically, I literally don't need this job. So I don't mind working it if me and her can both, because he was living out at my place at the time. I had my yurt up in the front, and he had his hut in the back. And I don't mind doing this if it works out where I can be with her. But and they're like, oh, we'll get you on this time of the day. And eventually, one guy wanted to keep him on daytime because he didn't think he was ready to be on his own at the company. There's a mutual friend, and he's like, look, you either put me on nights or I'm going to have to think about whether I'm going to spend time. Well, we'll get you the nights. And a week goes by, and then he comes back, like, I'm not on nights. And they're like, well, we think. He's like, no, not what you think. I already got a girlfriend who's making more than enough money. My rent is $100 a month. Why the fuck should I sit here doing this when I don't have to? It's you're telling me that I need to get an extra car for my girlfriend, and I need to not see her. I need to not be fucking my girlfriend when I really don't need this money. And they were dumbfounded by it. So I'd rather fuck my girlfriend than work this job. And because his girlfriend was like, baby, we don't even need the money, which is hilarious because all it took for that chick to have her programming short circuit at the casino was one creepy guy came by and grabbed her ass. And she's like, I'm not working there anymore. And I'm like, me and everybody around her is like, dude, you make $100 to $300 a night in tips. Just tell the bouncer to throw the fucking guy out and just deal with it. It's just, no, I don't want to, Jesus fucking, and it was stupid. She was making the type of money where we grew up that you could literally you could build up enough money to buy property, and it was just like, oh god. And then you could just cue the toilet flush and it's whoosh, and it is right back to poverty for those two. But the concept that you have to do these prescribed things and live this certain way, fucking mind-blowing, right? And I look at that, and I think what's right, what's wrong. And a good example of this in trucking is everybody's like, line up in the correct lane. Because, you look at the lane that's going faster, all the cars going down there, and sometimes people will block off the lane, and yeah, okay. That's just, that. I agree with that to a degree, but sometimes I'm just like, fuck it. Why am I getting in the correct lane a mile or two ahead of time and watching cars do, 30 to 40 miles an hour by me while I'm doing 5, 10 miles an hour? Fuck this shit. Move over. And I get that much farther ahead, and people are like, you're fucking not supposed to be in the lane. You can do what you consider right, or you can do what works. And I'm the bad guy for getting better results. And it's the thing about it. You just look at this life and all this concept of what you're supposed to do. And I see this all over the fucking world. The idea, well, you need this new car. You need that. No, you don't. You don't need any of that shit. You need what makes you happy for the most part. Well, even what makes you happy might be bad for you. What if being happy is fucking doing heroin or shit? I've known people like that. Like, I know guys that, like, they refuse to work a real job, or it's not that they refuse to work a real job, it's they refuse to quit smoking weed. And I was like, well, I can either have a better piece of the pie, or I can continue to smoke weed. And I'm like, well, I guess, and people say, well, yeah, you're a conformist. No, it's just, I'm a realist. You know, I mean, you can have your, and even that, why do I need to adhere to your dogma of weed smoking? Why do I have to do that? Well, and they'll be like, well, you don't have to. But I'm like, yeah, well, if I don't have to, then fuck, I'll make my choice and you make yours. I would like to smoke weed, but I'd rather drive truck and make a ton of money. You know, but the buddy that I know that fakes crazy, this is where it comes to a lot, sometimes the right and wrong. He retired at the age of fucking 30. The guy, he was the guy with the chick that worked at the casino. And it was, I gotta admit, it was fucking hilarious. And we're like, really? All you did was go in there and tell him some Alex Jones shit? Like, yeah, I just told him, like, man, the government, blah, blah, blah. You know, the type of shit that used to put you thrown in the asylum. And that guy retired at fucking 30. So all you guys out there talking about, you know, like, I would never do that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but then how many of you guys end up divorced multiple times and at 50 you're still fucking broke? Who won the game? That's what I want to know. I mean, if you're going to go single, like this guy lives relatively, say, $800 to $1,000 a month, plus free government health care, which whatever that's fucking worth. But he has a pickup, he has a motorcycle, he has a number of guns. He goes out and hunts occasionally. He forages, fishes. He spends time with his kids because he fakes crazy. He doesn't have to pay fucking child support. All $50 a month is all he had to pay, and he managed to get away with not paying that, and they still don't take his license. Don't put him in jail and none of that shit because he's technically disabled. But who's really winning in that case? The guy goes out and works, and we talk about right and wrong. Meanwhile, you see the situation where the government clearly has no problem fucking us over. You know, like you see this case where it's like, oh, we're gonna make more welfare woodsmen, like my buddy over there. We're gonna make that easier for people to do, and we're gonna make it harder for you, guy who's actually doing something for the world. And you see these rigid people like, well, it's wrong, only based on your perception of wrong, your programming. And then once you're dead, and arguably, if this, okay, I gotta tell you the truth, if that guy would just quit smoking. And he doesn't drink much anymore. He drinks occasionally. He has, you know, a bottle of Hard A and some beer occasionally. But he mostly smokes weed because he has another buddy who's legitimately disabled. He goes over there and helps him out occasionally, and that guy gives him a whole bunch of weed. You know, it's like almost like Yogi Bear. I have a whole bunch of weed. But you tell me that this guy is necessarily... I'm not saying he's a class individual. That guy, he's fucked people's ex-wives when they were still wives. He's a shitty person. But if we're going based on what was actually functionally punished and what actually happened, honestly, that guy's living the retirement life since 30, and now we're about 10 years into this, still living fine. Give him he might make it to 70-something, because even if he probably needs to quit smoking, and I don't doubt him, between rollies and occasional pack of Marbs, he'll probably never quit smoking. But it's funny to watch it. As you watch these guys out here in trucking, burn the candle at both fucking ends and get treated generally with disrespect from society. So, I mean, what is this respect even worth? Oh, if I'm doing the right thing, but the right thing gets me treated like shit. Well, if I do the wrong thing and don't have to do fuck all shit, wake up in the morning, smoke a joint, work in my garden briefly, maybe take the dog for a walk, and just not give a shit what people think, who was really right? Who was wrong? I mean, you're just going to die eventually anyways. You're just going to shut down. And some people would say, well, he's stealing from other people. Government steals from you every fucking day. I mean, when they throw a war casually, how do you feel about that? Oh, that Abrams cost how much? What, $500,000 or more? I don't know what the fucking Abrams cost. I know my house I bought over in the Rockies, over in a little town in Idaho, was $50,000 back in 2005. So let's see, $1 million would be 20 houses. 20 houses back then. And you watch them lob these cruise missiles at some location during a casual war or a drone strike. How much does that cost? How much does each drone strike cost? Why are we fucking policing this area? Or why do we have okay, you're going to tell me to do the right thing, but then you take 60 to 70% of my paycheck for welfare, Social Security, food stamps, a bunch of shit that I clearly never benefit from. I mean, if I didn't, say at some point my family got it at some point, like, say food stamps or something. But remember back when the church was the food bank, was the way to help people? And damnedest thing, people were more moral when that was the limitation too. Yeah. So I don't know. When you think about the concepts of what's right and wrong, just think about it as programming. Just this is the program. This is how it works, and you know, just you adapting to the situation. And think about it. What if you could rewrite your programming? Well, why is this wrong? Like, no, take away the governor, take away the limitations on your mind. Because if being a good man, being a good boy doesn't get good results, doesn't get you should be, if you're good, you should be getting great results. And if you're not getting great results from doing the so-called good path, why do it? It's like someone who pays on a house for way too long. They got the house and the problems, the bills. Eventually, fucking take the L, man. Just say, hey, man, we're losing this house. We're losing this house and we're downsizing. We're redoing this business because we can't afford this shit. And just move on. But most people get so locked into the idea that they can't fail that they will sit there and do the same broken shit for decades. So, I don't know. What's right, what's wrong, may be arbitrary. It's what works. It's what you should be aiming for. So, Sotiar Ogre out. Sorry, long philosophy. Take it easy.